My name is Nick. I'm from Channelbytes. I'm here with Cameron, also from Channelbytes, and we are super excited to have a conversation today with our friends at Structured. If most of you guys know, if you're listening in or you'll listen later, Channelbytes is, we bring in a lot of IT smart people to talk about great things that are going on in the industry, things that matter to businesses. And again, very fortunate that Structured, along with Aruba, thank you Aruba for sponsoring, is able to bring these people together to really talk about things that are going on in the world today, things that are going to be helpful for the IT community to learn, and some really just brass tacks of what to do right now. So with that, I want to introduce the Structured team, and we're going to round the room. And we will start with the man pacing at the bottom of my screen, Mr. Bill Tracy.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Bill Tracy here, VP of Structured or VP of Technology at Structured. I get to oversee and evaluate all the cool technologies that we bring to market and represent for our clients. And as my friend Nick mentioned, I hope you got the Dramamine kits that we sent out, because I will be pacing quite a bit during today's session.
All right, Cheryl.
Yes, my name is Cheryl Hanna. I'm a network engineer with Structured, and kind of focus on all things network related, wired, wireless, and security.
Awesome. And David.
Good morning. I'm David Ritchie, the Director of Enterprise Networking, encompassing the traditional route switch, application delivery controllers, WAN optimization.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, the man with the great background, showing the brand, Don.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Don Wright, wireless engineer, focused on everything Wi-Fi and mobility at Structured.
All right. Awesome to have you guys. So let's jump right into it. And just for those folks listening, either now or when they're, I guess they can't really do it when they're watching on demand, but if you have questions, please throw them out there and we'll get to them throughout this session. So at the end of the day, I think obviously, we all work in the IT world. We're all business people. We work in the channel. And I think, it's obvious that there's so much news out there, and Cam and I like to joke. I mean, there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype of things in technology that sometimes it's hypeful and sometimes it's helpful. And so let's kind of get a baseline and figure out, what's something that's actually helpful that's going on right now from the IT world. And let's start with Bill.
Yeah, so, I'm really interested in what's going on around contact tracing in the industry. And contact tracing is certainly something that we have to think about moving forward in our businesses as we interact with our clients, our customers, and our employees. But I think what's really interesting about contact tracing is the new avenues that it opens up for things like business intelligence and analytics. Things, showing where hotspots in your facilities are, showing where your clients are aggregating and spending time the most. So although we're looking at contact tracing being deployed to more businesses as a COVID response, I think there's a tremendous amount of kind of business intelligence that can be gleaned from that investment.
Awesome. Cheryl, what do you think? What's that's clearly Bill's hitting the helpful thing. Is there anything out there that's just maybe a little too much hype?
I think a lot of vendors are really touting the AI side of this contact tracing. We've got all these platforms out there that do all this artificial intelligence and can think for us now, which is great. There's a lot of helpful data that can come from those platforms, but we have to remember that there's a human side to this piece of information, this interaction. So on the contact tracing, these platforms may provide information like there's been too many people in the break room and it needs a deep clean. But there's got to be a person then that goes and responds to that information or that data. So I think the hypeful side is it's not 100% automated. There's a lot of data out there that we as humans still have to review that data and decide how to respond and react to that.
You know what's interesting, just as an anecdote, I read yesterday, Dr. Tam, which is the leading doctor for Canada that's kind of leading the COVID response, suggests that we may be seeing social distancing for like a couple of years, right? And that the national contact tracing app has only been downloaded by approximately 3% of Canadians, which to me really highlights the relevance and importance of the proximity and contact tracing that we're seeing now come out in the channel, because it's clear that we can't rely on government entities. Anyway, I just read that yesterday, which is why I thought that was interesting. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about structure because you guys are named Structured, and so that's just an obviously fun pun for me. But also, since COVID hit and the world went kind of whatever, what I have found is I have become increasingly reliant on personal structure to get through the day, right? How my morning, afternoon, evening looks and what I'm doing and whatever. And so given that, right, given my experience with that, and I'm sure a lot of you can resonate with that, I'm sure it translates to business as well, right? So like, what kind of structure do you think businesses are looking for, like right now, not next year, but right now, because we're in the thick of this still. And Bill, I'm going to once again toss the microphone over to you.
Sure. So, it's definitely been interesting when kind of, things started going into shutdown here back in March. We certainly helped a lot of people with remote access. And that was really getting their businesses set up to do it, quickly and as scalably as possible. I think, as we're looking forward now, I think businesses are coming to the terms that remote work, remote access is going to be a long-term strategy for their enterprise. We keep hearing from clients more and more that they're looking at reducing office footprint, allowing more work from home, because they've learned that productivity and employee satisfaction has gone up with work from home strategies in many cases. So I think businesses really need to focus on kind of evolving a more strategic outlook as to what remote access looks like, and really understanding, who is on the network, what devices they're using, how are they accessing it, and are they really having kind of a secure, frictionless experience when working from home right now.
So of course, the comment is everybody is more productive working from home. I wonder would everybody agree with that? I was waiting for the cue that like the child or the dog to run into the room right now.
That only happens on
the BBC. Yeah.
I was gonna say. Cheryl, you're
anecdotally. Oh, sorry, Cam. But anecdotally, just we've already heard from our employees, just the reduction in drive and travel time has been such a benefit to kind of quality of life in their experience, and I think we've actually picked up productivity in some cases because of that.
I can see that. I mean, I personally work better at home or in a focused environment. Cheryl, you're kind of boots to the ground, so to speak. What are you seeing from a structure point of view that businesses could benefit from right now?
Yeah, I think initially as everybody's just up and with the response to COVID and shutting things down, everybody's very reactive, and now that we've kind of all been in this spot for a period of time, I think it's time to start to kind of, how are we going to be more proactive and look at, we've got everybody working, or so we think we've got everybody working from home. Now let's focus on security. Like what are they actually accessing when they come in on their VPN or however they're accessing the network? What devices are they using to connect to our infrastructure? Making sure that policies are in place, and start to look at your network with a zero trust kind of mindset, where we need folks to access the things that they need to do to complete their job every day, but we don't want to give them access to everything on the network necessarily. So really start to identify policies from a security standpoint. Who's accessing the network? What are they accessing on the network, and what devices are they using?
It's kind of like having HR policies for IT, right? And only people can see certain things. Kind of.
Exactly.
David, you've been pretty quiet. You have anything you want to add?
Two things, visibility being one. So monitoring, alerting the network monitoring, the usage, and the users to ensure that the policies are being followed. And then the monitoring really around, as we start to build this out, one of the big things we should be focusing on is the availability of these services. And so if we're building in redundancy or high availability, if we're not monitoring when that fails and it fails again, then we're in a failed state for all this work we did to make it redundant and highly available. So making sure that we can see those events. And then when we talk about the visibility piece, when we talk about the interoperability piece, which is the second part, we want to choose solutions that have proven track records of interoperating with other vendors so that we don't have vendor lock. We want to be able to choose best of breed, best for our environment, and make sure that we're making choices for the business.
It's always important to do. All right, so I think we've talked a little bit about the structure, again, pun intended, of things that we really need to do short term. We know, obviously, when you think about IT and you think about the technology, there's all different types of companies, shapes and sizes, verticals, industries. And I know the Structured works with a lot of those different folks. I'm just wondering, are there any specific industry segments you think that are struggling more than others right now? And do you see the struggles as short-term, or are you really seeing them as like, this is a fundamental shift in how we all need to think about business moving forward into, right now and into 2021? Maybe we'll start with Don, since he's been the center of my screen.
Yeah, so I think if we think about the turbulence of the last few months, how it's, and it's actually only been a few months, but if we think about, we're always thinking long-term versus short-term. What do we have to get done right away? What do we need to be thinking about for next year? But if we step back a little bit, just even from the past few months, that nobody really knows what long-term really means anymore. We've seen this trend coming, the work from home. People want more free time. They want more time, unstructured time to work on their own and get things done.
Not Cam. Cam doesn't want unstructured time, just for the record.
No. Well, he's a one-off, I guess. So. But I think for the most of us, a lot of us can feel more efficient. We've already talked about that a little bit. More efficient, not spending time in traffic. If anybody who lives in any of those large metro areas knows what I'm talking about, you spent the time on the road where you just feel unproductive in your car. So, I think we can draw something out of this. We can actually look at efficiencies and look at being more effective long term. So those may be some things to focus on.
Cheryl, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Long term, what does that mean anymore? I see some struggles in our customers in healthcare, for example. There was a lot of response to the initial COVID outbreak of having to set up temporary units in order to handle the patient influx into hospitals and clinics, which involved setting up technology to allow them to complete their jobs and diagnose patients. Well, as the patient load started to decrease, now we're seeing a lot of those folks start to take those temporary units back down. And as things start to open back up in the communities, patient loads are going back up. We're hearing in Central Washington here, we're having a lot of struggles with them hitting capacity and starting to figure out what they're going to do with these patients, and now standing back up temporary units that were originally temporary and torn down. So there's a struggle with temporary versus long-term. What is that fundamental shift, as you said? And so I think that in itself is the struggle, is determining what is here for the short term and how do we respond to the long term as these things kind of flux in patient loads.
I agree with that. The winding up and down thing is something I think we're going to be seeing a lot of over the coming, months and potentially years, right? Bill, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, something kind of near and dear to my heart, and I think is, fraught with peril right now is the education landscape. All school districts, higher ed organizations are kind of struggling with what the future of education looks like. And this absolutely fits into the long-term versus short-term conversation. Everybody wants to get, I think, kids back in the classroom to some degree, but do it safely, securely, in a smart manner. So I think that, certainly right now is the time to be thinking really strategically as a technology department within any education institution about, what both paths look like. What does the future of remote learning and the future of in-classroom learning look like, so that they are prepared to move in either direction. I think this landscape is going to change rapidly. Many schools that I've already talked to in our local area have already announced, distance learning through November, December, January type timeframes. As we know in education, 2 or 3 months goes by really fast. And if kind of, at a state, county, whatever level they decide to open up those classrooms, those departments and teams are going to have a lot of work to do to be ready for what the contact tracing needs, the access needs, the technology infrastructure needs are going to be to support that. So I really encourage kind of technology departments right now to be planning for and spending as much time as they can while students are working or learning remotely to, build out and prepare anything they can to support in-classroom learning. Now's the time to do it.
What if schools don't go back?
It's that becomes a really challenging question around, equity, access, devices, all of those things that are needed. We've seen schools stand up, hotspots in parking lots to allow students that don't have internet access at home to come in and learn. Anecdotally, my school district locally, I'm on the technology board for, we have about 2,000 devices that were handed out in April. Almost 600 of those devices have either not come back broken, or come back unusable at this point. And so, the school's facing a shortfall of 20% of their devices or so that they need to get replaced in the next, 3 weeks here to get redistributed to students so that we can start our remote learning initiatives. So again, unexpected budgets in a time when schools are having their budgets slashed. Again, build those contingency plans out, build those budgets out, get the planning done now so that you have everything ready no matter what we face over the next few months.
Let me ask her. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Cam.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick. That's a really good segue. The point that you make there about, planning for the upcoming, school year and all that, right? And I think we can use it to set the stage for the next part of our conversation, right? So we have a big emphasis for us on a structured approach to moving forward. And I'm not just talking about my religious use of my Outlook calendar, Nick. I mean, well, actually, that's the question, isn't it? When we say a structured approach to moving forward, what are we actually saying?
I think it's time to, we touched on it a little bit, start to be more proactive than reactive. We've got all those folks out there that are working remotely, and we're thinking that this is probably not a short-term thing. Maybe a large percent of the workforce will possibly stay working remotely. We've seen benefits from environmental and traffic and all of those types of things. So if folks are happier and seeing benefits of working from home, let's keep them in that environment. So I think as far as what do we do now, and I think it's time to review policies. So whatever platform you use to keep those folks working, review the security policies behind it that are allowing or denying access to certain things within the network. And also talking to the users, talking to folks out there. How's your experience when you connect to the network? Do things feel efficient in how you're connecting? And users have a hard time when things are slow or not working the same way that they do when they're in the office. So we want to make sure that that user experience is solid and keeping folks productive.
I guess in the nature of being productive, we've talked about what do we need to do right now. So let's take, we've kind of talked high level. We've talked about policy. We've talked about the industries, the people that have been impacted by this. And clearly, Bill had mentioned we need to do things now, right? Especially as budgets are changing. But let's go down a layer. Let's get tactical, and specifically from your perspective, guys, what's the 1 to 3 like most important things that a business, mid-sized enterprise business should be doing in the next 90 days? Not 2021, but the next 90 days. Maybe we'll start with Don.
Yeah, so I think right now, as far as tactical solutions, things you need to get in place right now, I think big things are focus on simple, manageable solutions, things that you can get out to your workforce, things that will make their life, simple to use. This will avoid frustration on their part. They don't need any technical frustration for this. There's enough difficulties working at home to get over first. So I think that's huge. Simplicity is really important. Also, probably from a strategic standpoint, looking at this work from home as a trend. And so, as you get this out to your workforce, look at those strategic solutions, things that can, long term can make that better for you, as you push this out.
When you say,
Bill, what do you think? Oh, sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Sorry, when you say the work from home thing is a trend, do you mean like trending as in like this is kind of where we're going to see work going, or do you mean like 2021 everyone's back in the office?
I think it's probably going to go. We don't know. I mean, this is COVID-19, right? We don't know if COVID-21, COVID-27. This is going to be something that we've learned a big lesson. This year. If we take that forward, we can use that, to, reshape how our business works, and find out where the efficiencies are in there, and that can help us be better. And, we touched on some of those before, but I think moving forward, that's a strategic way to look at it.
Do you think, I guess, and maybe that as a question for Bill, do you think that everything that's happening right now is a catalyst, or is even, let's try to be positive, like, is this a positive opportunity for businesses to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and change my work from home policy. I'm going to go ahead and upgrade my infrastructure. I'm going to go ahead and update my security. Like, and again, I don't want to obviously put a positive to the COVID because it's horrible, but if just putting a pure IT hat on, is it an opportunity?
Yeah, it's absolutely an opportunity for businesses of all shapes and sizes to think about what the future of their enterprise looks like. So, work from home, what does that do for employee retention, satisfaction, productivity? What does it do from things like, potentially, real estate savings and investments? How is that going to change the landscape for retail organizations? Is Home Depot going to continue offering curbside pickup because people loved that experience, through it? So I absolutely think it's a time and an opportunity for businesses to reshape how they interact with their people and interact with their customers. And as we talk about in their employees, especially as we talk about work from home and access to their environments, they have to start really putting a strong lens on security right now. I think that's one of the key points is again, many organizations had to react very quickly to get users connected. Now is the time to be reviewing policies around segmentation, both in the network and the data center. What applications and systems do users have access to? And does that even potentially change based on how they're accessing the network? Don brought up, hardware-based solutions to get out in the field to help users with secure remote access back into the enterprise. I mean, all these technologies exist. They're scalable, manageable, easy to deploy, and cost-effective. Because as work from home continues, as remote work continues, it's also going to loosen restrictions around what kind of devices are accessing networks and where they're accessing from, which makes security that much more important.
You're on mute, Cam.
I can't unmute. Oh, wait. David, I noticed that's you were nodding along there quite a bit. Anything you wanted to add to the conversation?
Well, I think that what happened is a lot of environments had an idea of what work from home would be and wanted to introduce it or were thinking about introducing but didn't know what to do. And then this gave that a kick in the butt. So all of a sudden, it's not a do we do this, it's we need to do this. And so now we've been reactionary to it, but I think some of the planning that hasn't happened yet needs to continue for those environments, and it's just an extension of that.
Gotcha. And then, so Cheryl, so we were talking work from home, like this is what business should be doing. What if that's not an option for my business? What if I'm like proximity-based business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There are businesses that have been shut down and are starting to open back up. There are businesses that have been open this whole time that really are focusing on or need to focus on how do we minimize contact, right? So everybody's been talking about social distancing and contact tracing. How do we minimize contact between folks? If you've got a visitor coming into your office that needs to check in, how can we do that safely and securely? Is it increasing our presence on an application where they can maybe use their own phone to check in on my app, or an iPad that we provide that gets cleaned in between every visitor? So I think for those proximity-based businesses that have to be around people, it's really important to focus on safety right now, and how do we keep people socially distanced still and minimize the interaction and the contact between folks.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So let's shift the conversation a little bit. Obviously, this session with you guys is actually sponsored by Aruba, and while we're not selling, we're having a great discussion. We do want to, we want to talk a little bit about the Aruba technology, and from our perspective, we look at Aruba. We obviously look at all technology across the industry, but Aruba really is kind of an underdog. Like they're not as visible as a lot of their peers out there, but they truly have some pretty amazing technology. So let's talk a little bit about some examples of how Aruba is getting into supporting this new environment. So all the stuff we've talked about, of whether it be, proximity-based businesses or work from home, how are they reacting from a technology leader perspective? Bill, what do you think?
Aruba is a really interesting company for this space. Many people know Aruba as enterprise wireless networking and an absolute leader in that space. When I look at who Aruba is today within the HPE portfolio, they're a leader across wireless networking and security. And it's kind of the integration and bringing together of all of those solutions that puts them in the unique position. It's one of the reasons they're one of the vendors that we've chosen to go to market for our clients. They have technologies to allow remote access from homes via hardware, extend your enterprise wireless network to a home. They have security software that can help, segment and provide visibility and security into my network. And they have enterprise networking that goes all the way in through the data center and provides unprecedented visibility. So when I start thinking about all the things we've really talked about today, Aruba brings something to the table across all of those foundational network infrastructure areas that kind of help support this mission. And David talked about interoperability earlier and how important that is. Again, all of the Aruba solutions are kind of built on this open standards foundation and platform and highly interoperable.
Sorry, I was on.
Cheryl.
I thought I was on mute too. Cheryl, what do you think?
I agree with Bill. I think, Aruba's got a nice portfolio of platforms, one being their Wave platform that gives a lot of visibility to users and devices where they are within, if you're in your office, where in the office you are. It provides a really great platform to, initially the main goal of that platform was troubleshooting wireless network issues. And now with the current situation, they've been able to take that data. They are one that has kind of built out this cloud AI infrastructure to take all these feeds of data now and provide us some additional points of information. So for example, maybe HR gets notified that one of your employees might have tested positive. We can take this data now and determine where has that employee been in the last week. Maybe they've been mostly at their desk and in the break room. And so based on that information, then we can respond and say, okay, these areas are going to need a deep clean because this person has been in these particular areas. So I do think that they are in a unique position where a lot of that visibility and data is available, and now it's kind of munging it into something that's useful for this contact tracing and identifying certain areas that might need additional attention. And the interoperability is key because it doesn't matter what your wireless vendor is, that Airwave platform can interact with that and give you that same visibility and data, whether you're Cisco wireless, Aruba wireless, Mist wireless, whatever it may be.
I think that's a super important point that is done. Or actually, I guess Bill was talking about earlier, like depending on your network, and you may want to be making changes, you may want to adjust things, but you may not be able to right now, but you have to implement some of these new technologies to solve real problems right now. And you can't do a forklift upgrade right away. So the ability to have that interoperability, I would agree, from the people we talk to, is huge value.
Let's talk to the wireless guy.
Yeah. So there's a few terms been thrown around here. Contact tracing is one, proximity tracing is another. I think the contact tracing is obviously important so we can see where those infections are coming from. We know the areas of our facility where those are coming from, but also proximity tracing kind of removes that kind of that stigma or the privacy issue from contact tracing. If we just, proximity tracing rather is about just keeping people socially distanced. So we need to identify those areas in our facility where, maybe too many people are gathering. And that's something that Aruba can do with Airwave and also with their cloud management platform. Very simple to do, collect that data with a plethora of radios that are now in the access points. We can see, where those users are, and we can identify those areas without getting into privacy issues. So I think that's something pretty important, a pretty simple step that that customers can take for that.
Can you give me an example of like a use case where contact and proximity tracing makes a lot of sense, or like how a business might deploy and then like utilize this technology?
Yeah, I can think of a few. I mean, just think of it on a large scale. Think of an Amazon facility where people are moving all over the place. They have a huge number of workers, and then they probably all have to move things to a certain area. Proximity tracing there is really just about, making sure those areas are identified and you put in different work, different work situations for those. That applies to, I think, lots of businesses where you have a number of people inside a single facility. They're constantly moving around. They have to go to different areas of the facility. It's all about, at that point, it's about, finding ways to, make that safe, keep those areas, less crowded.
So a friend of mine,
from like a proximity, I'm sorry, Cam.
I'm not saying anything important.
I was just going to mention from a proximity standpoint, we work a lot with hotels, casinos, large public venues. We're starting to see those open up all over the country. Proximity tracing is huge in those environments where they could react quickly, to make sure they're adhering to state and local mandates and standards, and or making decisions on, is there a different way than in a casino they have to spread out gaming machines, rest areas, restaurants, things like that. As those businesses are reopening, they need to be cognizant and kind of understanding of where the people are gathering in their facilities.
So hold on. So I'm not that smart because I just had this idea now, and I'm sure I'm going to say it and you're going to be like, yeah. But it stands to me that with this type of technology in place, even after the pandemic dies down, like that information could still be super valuable. I mean, thinking of a casino as an example you just tossed out there, I would love to know where people at my casino are always going, because what am I going to do? Right? Am I crazy? Absolutely. Or is that actually like something I can do with this?
No, I alluded to it. I think there's a tremendous amount of business intelligence to be gained from these platforms. And to Don's point, security and privacy is a huge issue to concern. And, you have platforms where you could opt in or users could opt in and maybe even be rewarded in a retail environment for downloading an app that provides more fidelity. But there's a tremendous amount of contact and proximity tracing systems that can do a lot of passive scanning and passive identifying of Bluetooth devices and wireless devices and technologies and such without any kind of invasion of privacy.
Can you, sorry, I know I'm kind of asking a million questions, but clearly both you and Don have mentioned we can do all this and capture this information without invading your privacy. Can you qualify that a little bit? Like, just walk me through like how you're capturing the data and how it preserves my privacy, what little of it I have left.
Don, you want to grab that one or you want me to?
Sure, no, I'll take that one. So right now, as I think Cheryl mentioned, all this information from all this radio information, where those users are in your facility, that's all been done for a number of years for troubleshooting purposes, for reporting purposes. But now, we're just using it in a different way now. We're not worried about, who the user is in the proximity tracing case. We're just worried about, where they are in the facility. And so that's mature technology that's been in place for a number of years now. We're just utilizing it in a different way.
Gotcha.
So let's, I guess, on that note, and we can move on, but I guess it begs the question, Structured obviously deals with a lot of businesses as well as Aruba does. It seems like, though, the focus in everything now is around just the technology and not necessarily in what you guys are saying is some of the use cases, right? So I guess step one is get the technology implemented, make sure it's up and running. That's solving an immediate problem. But I guess phase two really is, if I'm a business, and we are, if you're a business, all the data that I'm going to get, the ability to actually change my core processes or change my business processes internally seems huge, right? Am I misunderstanding that? It seems like a great opportunity to shift the business a little bit. Bill's, he's nodding his head.
Absolutely.
So I'm assuming he's telling me I'm right, but.
No, absolutely. And that brings up what Cheryl brought up earlier. There's a tremendous opportunity for people in process here as part of that integration and understanding. And I think what's really interesting is this kind of technology can also bring teams together within an organization, right? Because now I might be involving, marketing, HR, other departments as we think about how do we glean some intelligence. This is back to technology we've been kind of deploying in large public venues and casinos and hotels for years in some fashion. Retail has been quick to jump on this trend over the last few years. I think this just keeps accelerating that, and really, again, highlights the people, process, and business intelligence side of this data correlation and use.
I guess that's what I was thinking of. That the question is like, who is involved with this? It's not just the sysadmin or the director of IT, or it's now this is a CFO issue. This is a CEO issue. This is a marketing issue. Like, this is, everybody is now on the bandwagon, and obviously the leadership probably is coming from the technical side, but it's much bigger than it was before.
I think every IT department right now is fighting for dollars and budgets in their environments, and providing more business value, getting more teams involved from the organization, and getting kind of board and executive level attention because of what the business impact might be, can help them get the funds that they need to do the critical infrastructure projects that they want to do.
Great.
I have a lot of thoughts. I just don't know how to vocalize them. I kind of want to go back to work from home for a sec. I know we've not talked about this yet. No one's talked about this yet. We're the first. Good for us. Specifically, I want to talk to So we're talking Aruba. Obviously, work from home is a bit of a nightmare scenario for sysadmins in some ways. And so I'm just curious to know like what Aruba's take is, what their tech is. Given that we believe clearly on this call, we see work from home as a long-term trend, not just something that's happening now. So how is Aruba supporting businesses right now?
I think Aruba's win here is the fact that they have this highly mature remote access solution to build upon as the starting platform for kind of this new, modern, secure work from home experience. As I start to couple that with network infrastructure that provides an unprecedented level of kind of visibility and programmability and security to provide the amount of kind of segmentation and control in the network I need, they're able to kind of cover this whole project end to end. And as the team talked about here earlier, you can bite off small chunks and parts of this and integrate them as they make sense to your business, right? I think it was maybe Cheryl or Don said, nobody's forklifting right now, or maybe that was you, Nick, but nobody's forklifting. So if I can bite off a chunk and still build kind of a strategy and a roadmap for the future, that's what Aruba brings to the table. The other piece they've done to help businesses do this that I think is really cool is offered a tremendous amount of kind of flexible and creative financing to help people get these things done, doing things like extended payment terms into 2021. So if customers do need to purchase more now or make purchases while there's no current funding available, that kind of creativity and funding that Aruba is offering really is second to none as well.
That's actually a really strong point that like when you hear conversations take place, it's always about tech and very rarely about, accessibility of said tech. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's a big one. What else?
David, what do you think?
So foundationally, we have a network. It's running. We're going to be using it in new and different ways. And to be able to do that, the most successful companies do that by being interoperable. And with giving a specific but non-specific example to shield the guilty, we want to avoid things like re-architecting our network so that we can have an interoperable routing protocol. So starting from that interoperability from the get-go gets you into different environments, gets you to be able to talk to these devices that are just going to have to continue to work, and continues to let you to leverage the existing foundational part of the network that's already there we need to use to be able to do all this cool stuff we're talking about right now.
Don?
Yeah, and so getting back to simplified solutions, one thing Aruba does really well is the remote access point products, which they first brought out in 2007. And how long ago does 2007 seem right now?
Was the iPhone out then?
Barely, right?
Yeah.
Can you remember those days?
I need my iPhone to check.
Yeah. So, the remote access point is a functionality that's built into every access point that Aruba builds. So, that's easily integrated into your system right now. So you can get those out to users. It's a simple solution. It's a drop ship plug and play solution that you can get to them, very easily managed and monitored through Airwave or through the cloud platform. So, that's one thing that's certainly, they have a leg up on other vendors by, having that purpose-built solution.
And let's round out the panel. Cheryl.
Yeah, from a security standpoint, we've touched on that topic a few times. Aruba has a great platform called ClearPass that really kind of rounds out those things that we've been discussing. It's interoperable with, it was built as a vendor agnostic platform. So you don't have to have Aruba switches or Aruba wireless. This is a platform that can integrate with anything that is based on open standards and can start to give you that visibility into the types of devices that are on your network by doing device profiling. So now I can see what device you're connecting to my network with. Also provides that policy management that we've been talking about. So who's on my network and what are they able to do once they connect to the network? we kind of touched on that zero trust model, whereas I really want to give my users the least amount of privilege that they need in order to complete their job. And that's how we really create the one of those layers of secure networking, right? Is make sure that users have what they need to complete their job and no more than that least privilege or zero trust environment. So I can write policies that say combinations of users and devices have access to X, Y, and Z on the network. And from a structured standpoint, we have deployed ClearPass into all of these different verticals and deployed them into multiple vendor environments. So we know that this is a successful platform. This is something that is proven in multiple environments to enhance your security posture.
Perfect.
That's actually a great segue, and it's probably hard to believe, guys, that we've actually been talking for 50 minutes so far. So I know time flies when we're talking tech, but let's kind of round out. Let's kind of connect the dots for the listeners that are going to listen to this afterwards. And obviously, we've talked a lot about technology, a lot about process. We've talked a little bit about structured and needing structure, but for those businesses out there that, they do need help, right? They have, there's IT people, but they don't necessarily know what to do. How do you connect the dots between what structure does versus the technology of Aruba and what you guys can, I guess, what questions you would ask of people that you're trying to help? What are the things that you want to try to do to let people know that, hey, there's opportunities to get this help that you may not have. And it's okay to ask questions because we're all learning right now. Maybe I'll start it off with Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing businesses can do now is go talk to your users, go talk to your employees. They've been working from home, some are working in the office, some are still working in a retail environment or otherwise. Go talk to your users, ask them how their access is going, how the performance is going. Is it easy to use? Is it high performing? And does it give them everything that they need to complete their job functions? I think as we're all remote, spread out all over the place, et cetera, it's easy to lose sight of that. Go talk to your people, find out what they need, and focus on making improvements if needed.
Cheryl, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, Nick, you hit it right on the head. You gotta ask questions, right? If you're a network administrator, we've kind of all had these folks out working from home or remotely, wherever they might be. Start asking questions. How are they connecting? What device are they connecting with? And what policies are enforcing that access? Do I need to tighten down my policies? Do they have enough access to do their job? Do they have too much access? Reviewing logs of whatever that platform is that's providing that access and those policies. Reviewing logs and looking for anomalies or things that we may have missed when we just started reacting and getting people connected. So I think that's really key right now, is asking questions, reviewing those configurations, those policies, how folks are connecting, and what do we need to do to increase that security posture of this process. Like we've all said, this is not going away anytime soon. So let's make sure that we are securing our infrastructure.
So speaking of questions, what a segue. We happen to have a couple. And these are pretty specific. So I'm going to toss them out there, and I don't know who in the team to direct them to. So if it's you, please just go for it. Question number one. One of the immediate steps that we suggested and have repeatedly suggested is review security policies and address those gaps. Can you give some specific examples, common vulnerabilities that you have seen as a result of this hasty transition, and the ones that maybe can be easily fixed?
Yeah, I can jump in there. So I think what I've seen in talking to our customers is we kind of did this real global work from home access. everybody, everywhere, anytime. So it's really time to start evaluating. Does everybody in the infrastructure need remote access? We can use platforms, like I mentioned, the ClearPass, to help secure who and what are accessing the network. You know, we look at Active Directory as kind of our main source of who our users are out there. Maybe not everybody's working from home. Maybe the HR team is still working in the office, and everybody else is working from home. So we can tighten down our policies based on those users in Active Directory and say, well, we can make a policy that says users in HR are not allowed to access remote systems, but everybody else is. So that's really what we're seeing is in talking about these policies and reviewing your setup is we really kind of threw this all out as everybody anywhere, and now we need to evaluate who and what devices and make sure that we are dialing in those policies.
You ready for another one? Good. Yeah, that's a great answer, by the way, but there's two more. Do the admins managing this hardware need Aruba specific training to become proficient, or is it intuitive? That kind of thing.
And if you missed it, it's actually admin. So he got confused by his Canadian accent of admin. So
sorry, and what did you say? Just checking. One of us speaks the Queen's. Speaks the language the country was.
Who wants to answer that question?
I can at least start it off. I do a lot of ClearPass deployments with our customers. So when I'm talking about that platform specifically, typically when we as Structured come in and help a customer with a deployment, we do a lot of side-by-side work rather than me just sitting in an office by myself, kind of building configurations and policies and then hand it over and say, okay, here you go. We really try and work with the customer side by side and do a lot of OJT, on the job training, and so that they can really learn the platform as we're building. So to answer your question, there is definitely some benefit from doing formal training, and some of these platforms like ClearPass, I typically recommend some formal training just to really kind of solidify the knowledge and understanding of what the platform can do for your environment. But we also do a lot of side-by-side training and working with our customers to make sure that they understand what we have built and deployed.
So just, I'm assuming the training resources that you're referencing are relatively easy to access and utilize?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's one of the most common, I would say, is virtual instructor-led training. So you can do a kind of a live classroom type of learning environment, but it's all virtual. So you've got a live instructor interacting just like we are today, can ask questions and interact with the instructor, but we can all be in whatever remote area we choose to be. So working with students, lab environments, and getting your hands on and touching the equipment, building out configurations, really kind of getting your feet wet. But yeah, absolutely easy to access, all virtual type environments. So.
Okay.
I think I'd also say, you know, as far as, you know, all the engagements for, you know, instruction engineers are always, knowledge transfer is always at the forefront. We always want to leave a customer feeling comfortable with the product that, you know, we step away after however long it takes to get that implemented, but we want them to be able to feel like, you know, we added some value to them. We added the value of giving them something they can use. Also, Aruba specific, I'd also say, without, you know, there's one great resource out there, and it's the Airheads community that's been around for so many years now. There's so much information out there. You can literally type in a natural language question into there and almost always get an answer back on within a couple of hits. So, another great resource to reach out to for his training.
Interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah, so there's one more question here, and I'm going to give it to Mr. Pacey because I think it's one of those Pacey questions. Are you ready? Are you ready for it? This is a good one. This is the best question I'm going to ask today. And I'm going to read it verbatim. I yield that it seems like work from home is here to stay, but I hate it, and I'm not the only one. So let's just say work from home recoil takes place, where tons of people say, screw this, and go back to the office. In that scenario, did I just waste a whole bunch of money on hardware?
I love that question. It's funny. It's, the term cloud recoil came around a couple of years ago. Customers did mass migration to the cloud and then came back for various reasons. So I think it's always important strategically to look at investment protection. Don absolutely hit one piece of this. When I think about an Aruba AP is also an Aruba wrap. If I deploy 100 of these in my home offices and we decide to pull that initiative back, those APs can come back and be redeployed throughout corporate environments, physical offices, et cetera. So investment protection from a hardware standpoint. We talk about investment protection from like a security and a visibility standpoint, absolutely no wasted investment. Because again, now when I'm thinking about, if I really think about how a secure, scalable work from home policy looks like, a user is a user on a certain device and their policy is dictated, whether they're at home, in the office, et cetera. So once I build out those segmentation and security policies using ClearPass, for example, those same restrictions still need to apply when a user's in the office. Just because I'm in the office versus home doesn't mean I can still access the accounting directory as a guy in the IT department. So again, there's those. It's really more about identifying a user and providing the right policy, regardless of location, regardless of device type. I might apply additional restrictions based on device type or location, but there's still system services and networks I never need to have access to. And thirdly, as I look at things like the Aruba CX switching platform, with all of the visibility and programmability that it has, again, I'm only going to get more benefit out of that switching environment when I have users in the office and more traffic on it, getting more analytics, more data. I'm getting some while people are remote and still traversing that network. So I only get more if that happens. So I really do see, because of the interoperability, because of the scale and kind of the breadth of the Aruba portfolio, I'm going to get value out of that investment across whichever piece I might decide to invest in.
Perfect. So my incredibly articulate friend that wrote me that question, the answer is nope, you're fine.
I like your answer better, Cam.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're actually about out of time, so I want to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, obviously, so much. Obviously, thank our sponsor Aruba for getting us all together. Thanks so much to the entire Structured team. You guys have been awesome, providing a lot of insight to think about and noodle on. And I know you're making Cam and I smarter than we were an hour ago. So for that, we appreciate it. And we will, for those of you listening now or later, if you have any questions, obviously you can go to Structured's website. You can learn more about them and talk to these fine people, and obviously look at Aruba as well to check out some of their solutions. So thank you guys again, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Bye.